The most boring and complicated subject in all of public life. So said the man who invented the infamous poll tax. The results, though, were anything but.
Pitched battles in London as poll tax protest ends in rioting.
Trafalgar Square's been turned into a battleground.
This is like a revolution.
We were trying to stop them fighting, and they just ran past me and just started hitting us. I wasn't doing anything.
Missiles rained down on the police, who seemed unprepared for the ferocity of the violence they faced.
Thick black smoke billowed across the square and over Nelson's column.
It's hard to believe this is London on a warm afternoon in spring.
Now, the poll tax was eventually replaced in 1993 by council tax. However, our local government funding hasn't been looked at since then, at least in part due to fears of repeating these same mistakes. The problem is that since 1993, council tax has become more and more regressive, hitting the poorest hardest and becoming a modern emulation of everything it tried to avoid. Now, if me talking about taxes makes you want to click off this video straight away, please stay with me. I promise I'm going to make it fun. With board games! So let's start really simple. What is council tax? Well, it's a tax levied by local authorities on all homeowners and renters. They split the tax into 8 bands, A to H, based on the value of your property in 1991. So in Brent, where I live, if your house was worth under £40,000 in 1991, you're in band A and you pay about £1,000 a year. If your property was worth over £320,000 in 1991, then you'll be in band H and you'll pay about £3,000 a year, so 3 times as much. Then there are discounts for empty rooms, people that live alone, and those on low incomes. But that's about it. It's really simple. So what's wrong with council tax?
Just about everything. I think the question should be what's right about council tax, and that's almost nothing.
That's Luke Murphy. He co-authored a report on council tax for the Institute for Public Policy Research.
Council tax fundamentally is an unfair tax. It's become increasingly like the poll tax that was abolished. It's unfair. It's based on property prices, which are nearly 30 years out of date.
House prices today are very different from prices in 1991. In 1991, a Band H property was worth triple a Band A property, hence the fact that they pay 3 times as much. However, in 2018, a Band H property is worth on average 8 times as much as one in Band A, yet the difference in payment remains the same. That means that as a proportion of the value of their property, poorer people are paying far more than richer people, 5 times more in fact, 0.5% compared to 0.1%. In a more progressive tax system, this line would be flat. And then there are the geographical discrepancies. Because London is so unequal, the variation in types of property is huge from borough to borough. So for instance, 60% of the properties in Barking and Dagenham are in Band C, compared to just 10% in Chelsea. And that means that while outer boroughs, like say Kingston-on-Thames, charge Band E properties £1,500 a year, inner London boroughs, like Westminster, can get away with charging Band E properties just £669 a year, simply because there's so much of Band H to make up the difference.
But it's also regressive with regard to income as well. Our research at IBPR has shown that the tax has become more regressive over time for those on the lowest incomes. And that's been exacerbated and made worse by things that the government has done. They cut the budget for council tax support and then they devolved it to local authorities who are already feeling funding pressures.
The number of claims for a council tax reduction have fallen from 824,000 in 2013 to just 657,000 in 2017, as councils have tightened the eligibility for support.
So some councils have been asking families and individuals to pay a minimum payment for the first time on council tax, and the effect can be, many of those people are already struggling to get by, and it does mean that they'll have to be making difficult choices around rent, around the everyday items that they need to buy, and they'll be really struggling and impacted by that.
I think it's pretty clear then that council tax is a rigged game. The poorest shoulder more of the burden, those in affluent areas get to pay less, and with minimum payments and reduced support, at the bottom it really does look like a flat tax. However, there are proposed solutions.
We've argued that in the short term, the council tax should be devolved to the London Mayor. After all, council tax predominantly funds local public services, so why not give local politicians the control over that? It's an extremely difficult tax to reform. The experience with the poll tax was extremely bruising for politicians, but we have argued that in the short to medium term, there should be a focus on restoring support to those on the lowest incomes who've been hit by the minimum payments, etc. But in the long term, we've argued for council tax to be overhauled, so you would abolish the banding system, and you would also update the property prices so that the tax relies on the property prices that we have today.
But these changes probably won't be implemented because the memory of the poll tax is so strong, and quite understandably, politicians don't want to touch local government funding with a 10-foot pole. But while we wait, with every passing year, council tax becomes more and more regressive, more like the poll tax which it tried to replace. Maybe the only thing left to do is get really angry and flip the board. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Huge thanks to Luke Murphy for all his help. Please go read his report, I've linked it below. It really was the foundation for this whole video. For more What's Hot London, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications. Till next time, I'll see you later.